Okay, so today I want to talk about anxiety, and I feel like anxiety is something that a lot of people struggle with, and it might not be like a diagnosed anxiety disorder, but I think anxiety is something that's inside of all of us as a result of not only just the fall, but I mean, at its root, it's a result of the fall, but also it's a result of doubt. And that's not something that I realized until very recently, actually. Um, for most of my life, I struggled with the fear of failure, the fear of letting people down, the fear of people depending on me, the fear of just, I guess, just failure. That's failure and rejection. That is what I've struggled with for, I mean, as long as I can remember. I feel guilty about things that really I shouldn't feel guilty about because I'm afraid that maybe I've done something wrong. And um, I'm afraid of what people might think of me. Whenever I do something wrong, I can't forget it. It's like this cloud of regret that just like weighs me down. It's like a burden. So I have been working through that for the past few months, and now coming to college, I the Lord has just He's just flooded over me this peace about my life and about what He's doing in my life. So I'm going to read some verses from Psalm 56. This is actually, I was just reading Psalms and I was just reading like the whole book and I stumbled upon Psalm 56 just in reading. And wow, like it is beautiful and I love it. And oh man, okay, so I'm going to start in verse 1. So it says, "Be gracious to me, O God, for man tramples on me all day long, an attacker oppresses me. My enemies trample on me all day long, for many attack me proudly. When I am afraid, I put my trust in you. In God, whose word I praise, in God I trust, I shall not be afraid. What can flesh do to me?" That what can flesh do to me? What can man do to me? That's repeated throughout this chapter. And I think that, well, I know that when in the Bible things are repeated, that's like putting an exclamation mark after something. Because in the original text, they didn't have punctuation. So when they repeat something, that means that it is so important. Um, and I mean, even when you're talking today, if you repeat something, that means that you want somebody to remember it, you know? So um, I think the fact that it repeats, what can flesh do to me? What can man do to me? That is such a reflection of who God is, because God is so much better than man. God is the most beautiful contrast to man. In Ephesians 2:4, it says, "But God." It talks about how sinful man is, and it says, "But God." That, in my opinion, is the most beautiful passage of scripture, because not only does it convince us of our own brokenness, which you have to know in order to embrace God's healing, but it also convinces us of how beautiful and how amazing God is and how just provisional He is. Um, so in the beginning of Psalm 56, it says, "For man tramples on me and attacker oppresses me." That is what anxiety feels like. Anxiety feels like somebody is chasing you, somebody has given you a backpack to carry up a mountain, and you can't carry it because it's so heavy. But you can't drop it because it's important. It's not yours, it's somebody else's. So you have to make it up the mountain with this backpack on that's weighing you down. But it is so difficult, and you really just need somebody to take that away from you. So in this page of my Bible, I circled verse 3, which says, "When I'm afraid, I put my trust in you." It sounds really easy to put your trust in God, because all you have to say is, "Yeah, God, I trust you." But the thing is do you really believe it? That's what I struggle with. I know that God is sovereign. I know that God is good and that He has my back and He's never going to leave me or forsake me. But do I really believe it all the time? No. So I circled this verse and I just said, "Lord, help me to put my trust in you when my anxiety seems to take me over." That's what it feels like. It's like a wave of doubt. And this fear that's inside of me stems from doubt in who God is. And I hate to say it, because part of me wants to put up this perfect face of just, yes, I trust in God. I'm a Christian. I fully believe that God has my back and I don't struggle with anything. But in reality, anxiety covers me like a blanket, trying to suffocate me. And sometimes I feel like I can't even move because of it. Sometimes it debilitates me. But now I have this new reassurance in this verse, and in, I mean, so many of the Psalms, that God has got me. Why? My question for myself was, why would I trust in man when I have this God who is so much better? It actually, in the chapter before, in Psalm 55, it says, "Cast your burden on the Lord and he will sustain you. He'll never permit the righteous to be moved." He will never permit the righteous to be moved. Like, the fact that putting your trust in God, even though it'll seem like evil is trying to take you over, you have this peace inside of you. And I'll be honest, I haven't felt that peace completely, I don't think. And I don't think that on earth that humans can perfectly feel this peace. But I do believe that being in relationship with God, being fully seeking after him in the most perfect way that we can, which is actually really imperfect, but fully seeking after him can help us to find this peace inside of us that seems to vanquish all of the anxiety. And y'all, that will be such a beautiful day. I've gotten a glimpse of it in the past few weeks, just like working through Psalms and like seeing mostly just like the struggles of David. Like a while back I tried to kind of figure out what my testimony was, and I found Psalm 22. And Psalm 22 is actually, I have a lot of favorite scriptures now, but Psalm 22 is so good because it just hit me where I was. It was like the Lord just knelt down and met me, which he does in so many of my struggles, because honestly, I can't do it on my own. I can't go to God. Sometimes I get into a struggle and I am so ashamed that the Lord just comes down and he just meets me where I am, because he is a good father. In Psalm 22, verse 2, David says, "Oh my God, I cry by day, but you do not answer, and by night, but I find no rest." Sometimes it does feel like God is not answering. When I'm worried about something that I really shouldn't be worried about, and I know I shouldn't be worried about it, but for some reason inside of me it's like, "Abigail, you can't do this," or "Abigail, you're failing," "Abigail, you're going to be rejected." I cry out and I'm like, "God, why are you doing this to me?" And it just seems like he's like, what I want him to do is just say, "Oh, I'm so sorry. That was my mistake. Here, let me give you this peace." But in reality, that's not necessarily what God does. He might do that. He might, if you pray for peace, he may just immediately give it to you. But also, God uses our struggles and our anxieties for our own good. He uses it to teach us something. And so he's not going to let you go through stuff just because. The next verse, verse 3 says, "Yet you are holy, enthroned on the praises of Israel. In you our fathers trusted, they trusted and you delivered them. To you they cried and were rescued. In you they trusted and were not put to shame." They were not put to shame because they trusted in God. If you put your trust in God amidst all these anxieties and fears and doubts and everything that seems to weigh you down, you putting your trust in God will not be fruitless, because God will always come through for you. And that's something that I wish that everybody could know, because sometimes, even if I know it, sometimes it's hard for me to believe it. And I can't even imagine not even having a glimmer of hope in my mind in the midst of anxiety. So my prayer for you all is that you will just be able to fully embrace trusting in God, and that you'll be able to see in your anxiety the fact that God has got you in his hands, that you can fully put your trust in God with no doubts. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 is one of my favorite verses, because that was, for one thing, it was the first verse that I ever learned, because my grandmama really wanted me to learn it. So she gave me $1 when I was like 7, or probably younger than 7. But that is one of my most favorite verses, because for one thing, it's just beautiful. It says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make straight your paths." Now that sounds really good. It sounds easy. You can just say, "Oh yeah, trust in God. It's fine." But a lot of people use that as a cop-out. A lot of people, when you're worried about something, they just say, "Yeah, just put your trust in God. It's fine." But the magnitude of that is, it's huge. It's taking your trust off of something that's tangible and like right here in front of you and just putting it in something that you can't see. It's plain and simple. You can't physically see God in person. So that's something that's really hard. But I remember we talked about this at church one time. We talked about the verse, and the person who was talking highlighted not the trust in the Lord part, but the next part that says with all your heart. Trust in the Lord without a doubt. That is something that's so hard. And so many people just dismiss it as trusting in God. And that is so not the point of the verse. The point of the verse is to say, trust in God with all your heart. So I just want to encourage y'all to, when you're going through anxieties, when you're struggling, when you're fearing things, when you're worried, when you're doubting, I just want to encourage you to put your trust fully in God. And know that it's not going to be easy, because we can never perfectly trust in God because we're fallen. But if you ask the Lord for help with this, He will be faithful. He will never forsake you. He's not going to just make you look like a fool. God listens and God answers faithfully.